The message arrived in the dead of night. General Alexander Carter sat alone in his quarters on Luna Base, a cold expanse of metal and reinforced glass overlooking Earth. His days were filled with the quiet tension of a man who had fought too many wars and won too many battles. He had expected to retire in peace, watching his only son grow up far from the horrors of war. Instead, the war had come to him. The encrypted transmission from the Galactic Council Judiciary Office displayed nothing but a stark, emotionless notification. Subject: Daniel Carter. Status: deceased. Cause: judicial execution. Charge: aggression against a galactic noble. Sentence carried out: 0800 hours. Vardos, 6th Judiciary Center. The words blurred before Carter's eyes. His fingers trembled as he gripped the tablet, veins standing out beneath scarred knuckles. His mind rejected the words, demanded an explanation, but none came. His 12-year-old son, was gone. Daniel had been a student on Vardos, 6, a neutral colony where human and alien children studied interstellar diplomacy together. A quiet boy, curious and bright, with none of his father's military bearing. Why would they execute him? Then another message flashed onto the screen. Video footage. Carter didn't hesitate. He tapped the file. The grainy security feed showed Daniel in a crowded marketplace, his wide eyes darting between strange alien wares. Then, a towering Tolvar noble youth, twice his size, clad in flowing ceremonial robes, shoved him hard enough to send him sprawling. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Daniel pushed himself up. A merchant shouted something in the alien tongue. More laughter. The Tolvar sneered and stepped forward again. Carter saw the exact moment his son realized he was in danger. Daniel's stance shifted, small hands curling into fists. His training, Carter's training, kicking in. The Tolvar swung a heavy arm. Daniel ducked, twisted, and shoved hard. A survival instinct, a desperate attempt to escape. The alien prince staggered back, tripped, and hit the stone pavement. And just like that, Daniel Carter was doomed. The video cut to his arrest. No trial, no defense. The Galactic Council, eager to appease the Tolvar Dominion, declared his actions an offense against a noble lineage. A child's desperate struggle had been labeled attempted murder. The next clip showed a sterile, featureless chamber. Daniel stood small and pale beneath the council's insignia, his hands bound. A voice droned a sentence. No outrage, no resistance. He was just a boy. They made him kneel. A guard raised a plasma pistol. The shot echoed. The screen flickered black. Carter sat frozen, staring at the emptiness where his son had been. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, slow and deliberate, like the drumbeat of an advancing army. Somewhere deep in his chest, something snapped. The Galactic Council believed humanity to be tamed. Their influence stretched across 1,000 star systems, and their word was law. They had no idea what they had just done. Carter stood, his movements slow and precise, honed by decades of battlefield discipline. He reached for his holodoblit and pressed a single button. A secure military frequency activated. A voice responded almost immediately. Colonel James Vega. Sir. Vega's tone was wary. No one contacted this frequency without cause. Give me Ghost Core, Carter said. We're mobilizing. A pause. Then understood. The channel closed. Carter exhaled and turned to the viewport. Earth hung in the darkness beyond, serene, unaware of the storm that was about to break. The Galactic Council had declared war on him, and they didn't even know it yet. The Ghost Corps was not listed in any official Earth military records. It did not exist in the eyes of the Galactic Council. It was a myth, a whisper of death that had passed between warlords and diplomats alike, a name spoken only in hushed fear. But General Alexander Carter knew better. The men who served under him were the deadliest operatives Earth had ever produced. Soldiers pulled from Black Ops programs, deep cover assassins, and battlefield ghosts who had turned entire wars with nothing but a knife and silence. They were Carter's own creation, honed through decades of war. And tonight, they were gathering. Carter strode into the underground command center beneath Luna Base, where a dozen hardened men stood waiting. No ranks, no insignias, just killers forged in the fires of Earth's most secret wars. At the center stood Colonel James Vega, a man built like a steel beam, his dark eyes sharp beneath a buzzed scalp. He had been Carter's second-in-command for nearly 20 years, a warrior whose loyalty was matched only by his ruthlessness. "Sir," Vega greeted, voice flat. "We're ready." Carter nodded once. He stepped forward, his face set like stone. "The council executed my son." A ripple of stillness passed through the room. Some men lowered their heads in silent rage. Others clenched their fists. "I want every asset mobilized," Carter continued. "All off-world ghost units are to be recalled immediately. Full combat loadouts. We hit them hard, and we hit them first. No negotiations." Vega crossed his arms. "We taking this to the Dominion directly?" "Not yet." Carter's voice was cold. "First, we sent a message." His eyes settled on Captain Elias Rourke, the team's infiltration expert. The man was lean, wiry, with a face carved from shadow and smoke. "Rourke, the Council's High Chancellor is currently aboard the cruiser Verdict in neutral space. That ship is untouchable by law. I need you to make an example out of it." A slow, predatory smile spread across Rourke's face. "How loud do you want it?" Carter didn't blink. "Burn it. Leave one survivor." The Ghost Corps did not question orders. They executed them. Hours later, aboard the GCS Verdict, the Galactic Council's flagship hovered in the void, its hull gleaming with the arrogance of power. It was an untouchable fortress, protected by layers of security that no sane force would dare challenge. They never saw the ghosts coming. Rourke and his team bypassed the outer patrols, disabled the ship's internal defenses, and moved through the corridors like specters of death. One by one, the security forces vanished. Throats slit, bodies dragged into dark corners. By the time alarms blared, it was too late. Rourke stepped onto the bridge, his rifle raised. Council guards lunged for weapons. They died before they could even fire a shot. The High Chancellor, a frail-looking Volcari with gilded robes and hollow eyes, froze as Rourke leveled his weapon at his skull. "You murdered a child," Rourke said, voice a low rasp. "Now you burn for it." He pressed the detonator. Explosions ripped through the ship, fire consuming its decks as emergency sirens screamed. Only one escape pod launched, just as Carter had ordered. Luna Base Command Center. Carter watched the burning wreckage of the Verdict through a live feed, his expression unmoving. Vega exhaled. "The survivor will tell them it was us." "They need to know who they've angered," Carter said. "Now we prepare for war." The Galactic Council would come, but Earth's deadliest general would be waiting. The burning wreckage of the GCS Verdict was a warning shot that sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Inside the vast marble halls of Citadel, the ruling chamber of the Council, High Chancellor Aranis sat in grim silence. His aged, avian features were tight with suppressed rage. The scent of burnt metal and death still lingered in his mind. The work of ghosts who should not have been able to touch him. The human, General Alexander Carter, had broken the unbreakable. A dozen counselors from the Dominion's most powerful species filled the chamber, their voices raised in frantic debate. "This was an act of war," spat the Scallion K representative, his crimson scales flaring. "They killed the boy, Chancellor," snapped a gruff, insectoid Tyreek. They knew what this would lead to. Aranis let their voices ring out, eyes flicking toward the lone figure standing in the shadows of the chamber, the head of the pre-march guard, Supreme Commander Vorak. The hulking Jurok warrior's cybernetic eye glowed a faint red beneath his helmet. "They will not stop here," Vorak said, his voice a deep mechanical growl. "We must strike first." Aranis finally stood, his long robes flowing. "Summon the Armada Prime. We will show Earth what it means to defy the Dominion." The chamber erupted in approval, but Vorak remained silent. because he knew this war would not go the way they expected. Luna Base, Earth's last warning. Carter had seen war before. He had seen planets turn to ash, empires collapse under the weight of their own arrogance. And he knew exactly how the Dominion would respond. "They'll bring their biggest fleet," Vega muttered, watching the encrypted transmission intercepted from the Citadel. "They'll think we'll surrender or try to negotiate. They don't understand what we are," Carter replied. His hands rested on the sleek metal table of the war room, his cold blue eyes scanning the holographic map of the system. Red blips, marking the incoming Dominion armada, blinked into position. Hundreds of warships. Carter exhaled. "We have one shot at this." Rourke leaned forward. "We can't match them in a direct fight. What's the play?" Carter's lips curled into something almost resembling a smile. "We make them bleed before they ever touch the ground." The Void Dominion Armada Prime, the Dominion's flagship, the GCS Eternal Judgment, was a behemoth, a city-sized dreadnought designed to shatter planets. The Armada Prime moved in perfect formation behind it, an unstoppable force. Vorik stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the final approach to Earth. His instincts itched. Something felt wrong. "Sir," a lieutenant called. "Long-range scanners are detecting." The signal cut. The first explosion tore through the fleet like a silent scream. Then another, and another. Ghost Corps had been waiting. From the black void of space, cloaked Earthstrike teams had infiltrated the Dominion fleet before they even reached orbit, planting payloads deep within critical systems. Now, the Armada Prime burned. Vorik snarled, slamming his fist against the console. "Deploy ground forces. Now!" The Dominion still had numbers. But Carter had something far worse. He had a reason to kill every last one of them. Earth's surface, the ghosts unleashed. As the first Dominion landing craft screamed through the skies, they found Earth waiting. Carter's soldiers were not lined up in trenches, waiting to be bombarded. They had already moved into position, hidden, watching. As the first waves of Dominion troops disembarked, the forests, ruins, and cities erupted in calculated violence. The Ghost Corps struck without warning. Blades in the dark, sniper rounds that shattered armored skulls, EMP blasts that turned Dominion walkers into metal coffins. Carter himself led the charge. A Dominion warlord turned just in time to see the general's blade pierce his throat, the old soldier moving with deadly efficiency. Carter was not leading from a command room. He was in the dirt, in the blood, where he had always been. Vorik's forces faltered. For the first time in Dominion history, they were not the hunters. They were the prey. The fall of the invasion. The battle lasted hours, but the Dominion had never fought like this. By nightfall, the Armada Prime was in full retreat. Carter stood atop the ruins of Dominion tank, watching their once mighty warships pull away from Earth's orbit. Vega and Rourke approached, bloody but alive. "We did it," Vega muttered. Carter didn't look away. "Not yet." This wasn't over. Not until the entire Dominion paid. The Dominion had never known fear. Not until now. The once mighty Armada Prime, humiliated and broken, limped back to Dominion space. Its dreadnoughts crippled. Its warriors slaughtered. Its commanders disgraced. But General Alexander Carter was not finished. Standing on the bridge of the UES Revenant, Earth's most advanced warship, Carter stared at the holographic projection of his next target, the Citadel. "We're taking the fight to them," Carter said, his voice calm. Vega crossed his arms. "That's a suicide run." Rourke chuckled darkly. "Wouldn't be our first." Carter turned to his crew. "The Dominion thought they could kill my son and walk away." His voice was steel, his eyes frozen fire. "We're going to teach them what happens when you take from us." The crew saluted. The Revenant vanished into slip space. The Citadel, a fractured Dominion. The Citadel, the heart of the Dominion, stood as a symbol of power and control. Its spires reached into the void, a monument to their supposed superiority. But now, Fear gripped his halls. Counselors whispered in panic. The Armada Prime had been shattered. The humans, mere primitive in their eyes, had done the impossible. High Chancellor Arani sat on his throne, his taloned fingers tapping against the armrest. His eyes flicked to Supreme Commander Vorak. What remains of our forces? Arani's demanded. Vorak's expression was grim. Scattered. Broken. The humans will come. Arani scoffed. They wouldn't dare attack the Citadel. Before Vorak could reply, alarm screamed through the chamber. A single warship had entered Dominion space. One warship. One name. Revenant. The Revenant's Wrath. The Revenant dropped from slip space, engines burning bright. It did not slow. Inside the warship, Carter moved with lethal precision. His team was already suited up, preparing for the assault. This isn't a war, he told them. This is justice. The ship's railguns fired, shredding the Citadel's outer defenses. Fighters scrambled, but the Revenant was too fast, too perfectly designed for this moment. Then they deployed. Carter and his Ghost Corps hit the Citadel like a storm. Vorak met them at the gates. The Supreme Commander was a living war machine, towering over Carter, his cybernetic arm crackling with energy. You should have stayed in the shadows, human, Vorak growled. Carter's knife was in his hand before Vorak could finish his sentence. The fight was brutal, a clash of raw power against relentless precision. Vorak strikes his shatter steel. Carter dodged them all. Then one opening. Carter drove his blade into Vorak's chest, twisting it. The Dominion's mightiest warrior fell to his knees. And then he fell silent. The end of the Dominion. Carter stood in the council chamber, his armor slick with blood. The surviving counselors cowered before him. You took my son, he said quietly. Arani's trembled. Please, mercy. Carter's pistol answered. The last shot of the war rang through the Citadel. The Dominion was dead. Epilogue, a warrior's goodbye. Back on Earth, Carter stood before a simple grave. His son's grave. Vega and Rourke stood beside him, silent. We won, Vega said. Carter nodded. But victory meant nothing without the reason he fought. As the wind howled across the field, Carter spoke softly. They'll never hurt us again. The galaxy would remember his name, but he would only remember his son.